One cannot raise walls against what has been forgotten. The citadel of Ishual succumbed during the height of the apocalypse, but no army of inhumans Srunk had scaled its ramparts. No furnace-hearted dragon had pulled down its mighty gates. Ishual was the secret refuge of the Kuniyuruk High Kings, and no one, not even the No-God, could besiege a secret. What's going on, everyone? Michael R. Schulteis here, author of the Rostoval Saga, which you can see, as always, on the shelf behind me. Today, I am happy and proud to announce my reread of R. Scott Bakker's Prince of Nothing series, my favorite books by my favorite author. So what I want to do today is share with you 5 reasons I have for rereading these books. Now, for a bit of context, I read the first 2, that's The Darkness That Comes Before, Book 1, and The Warrior Prophet, Book 2, back around 2015. And then around 2020, I finally got around to reading Book 3, The Thousandfold Thought. And now it's 2023, and I am going to read all of them again from the beginning. I'm very excited. This feels like the right time to do it. So what I want to do today is share with you 5 reasons I've decided to reread these books after a few years. And the first reason is the characters. R. Scott Bakker's characters haunt me. I wouldn't call them good people. They're very flawed. But they're very human for that. And they tend to be such fascinating studies in having some traits that are lamentable or just deeply tragic, and then other traits that make them somehow you connect with them through what's often very broken in them. And you just don't get characterization like that every day. In fact, I found very few authors can really touch what I see R. Scott Bakker doing, and I would love to get there myself someday. I feel like I have come to understand the dark, troubled heart of Nair the Silvendi barbarian. I sympathize with the intelligent and insightful Drusus Sakamian trying to warn the world of this terrible danger that no one takes seriously anymore. And his obsession with Esmenete, Lady of the Evening, we're going to try to keep this kind of PG here, is both pitiable and very, very relatable. And Esmenete herself, this person from a background that is very much... She suffers a lot in these books, and she has a not very enviable situation in society, to put it very mildly. And you can't not feel for her. So the strength of these characters, you just have to experience it. They will haunt you. They're not the kind of people who you would necessarily want to be friends with. I won't sit here and say that they're good people, but they are such fascinating character studies. And the most fascinating of all is Anasarimbour Kelhus. He's kind of a Nietzschean Ubermensch messianic figure. It's a very clear nod to the Kwisatz Haderach in Dune. In Dune, this is a figure who is supposed to be produced by this eugenics program by the Bene Gesserit witches. And in R. Scott Bakker's series, Prince of Nothing, the figure of Kelhus has been produced by the Dunyain, who are these people who have a eugenics program in secret for a very, very long time. And Kelhus is fascinating and not a normal person, and he might be kind of a psychopath. And I just find him one of the most engaging figures I've encountered in all fiction. So the characters alone, this is all the reason I need. I could stop the video right here, but I have 4 more reasons. So God-tier world building is reason number 2. These books have it all. There are tribes and nations that feel very real, very beautifully realized. You get a sense that R. Scott Bakker understands geopolitics. He understands pre-modern cultures. You get the sense that he understands specific pre-modern cultures. Steppe nomads, the medieval Europeans, the Byzantines, medieval Arabs and Persians, it all feels very real, and the real world influences are part of the charm here. The premise of these books has to do with essentially an analog for the Crusades. So there's a set of peoples who are analogs for medieval Christians, including kind of a Western European set of analogs and kind of a Byzantine analog. And they're going on a holy war against essentially the Islamic analog. And the drama of this and the way that the different peoples are brought to life all feels so immersive. It's like you're there. It's some of the best world building I've ever encountered. And it's another very clear reason to give these books a reread. Now, comparisons to Tolkien are overwrought in fantasy, so I will just say that besides Tolkien, the only fantasy world I have ever encountered that comes close to this one is Malazan, Book of the Fallen. And if that's not a ringing endorsement of the world building, then I don't know what is. All right, themes and content. Reason number 3. These are very dark, intricate, multi-layered books. These are books that explore human suffering, human folly, conflict, the process of defining narratives of good and evil, individual pathologies and tragedies and psychopathologies sometimes, human nature, religion, politics, power, it's all there. It's all comes to life. And it's all very mature and very dark, and I did need to take a little break after the second book, back when 2015 or thereabouts, I think. I feel like I've really put on some muscle as a reader since then, and I've come to appreciate darker themes and content even more. So I read book 3 around 2020, and it was just superb. It just absolutely blew me away. So I'm looking forward to reading all 3 of these books back to back. And the exploration of the themes is a thing that I think adds so much to these books. Really, there's a lot of layers there. There's a lot of intricacy and reflection and introspection, and I'm here for it. I love it. So reason number 4. The stories are incredible. I mentioned before, the plot of these books in broad outline centers around the holy war between these two civilizations, two religions. And the real world influence is the Crusades, but it feels so sweeping and so expansive and so absorptive, and you're there at the individual level, and you also see collective accomplishments. And the whole thing you feel like you're in the Iliad too. I should mention in passing that the prose styling here is maybe the best that I've ever read. This could be another reason. I'm going to just keep this to 5, but the prose styling does a lot of service for every aspect I've talked about and brings these stories to life in beautiful detail. It's like, again, you feel like you're in the Iliad. The poetry of it is so beautiful, and it enhances the story perfectly without taking anything away. You're not going to get distracted and, oh, look at what he can do. No, this is the best prose I've probably ever read, certainly in modern fantasy fiction. That feels like a safe statement to make. Reason number 5. These books are a huge influence on the Rastaval saga. As I write more books in my series, I find I'm going back to these books more, not less. Rastaval probably would fit in pretty well with the Sylvendi. These are R. Scott Bakker's nomadic barbarians on the steppe. It's kind of like the Eurasian steppe. The key point that I'd make here is that, like the Prince of Nothing, the Rastaval saga takes place in a violent, pre-modern world with a lot of war and slavery, and there's divine religious aspects. My books more have different war gods. Like rival tribes will have their own different war gods, and that's the main angle of religious conflict, at least at first. I mean, there's some more complexity as time goes by, and you encounter, as with the Prince of Nothing books, you encounter, let's just say, beings from other worlds, shall we say. So, I'd say a lot of the aspects of the themes and content I find myself drawing on to some degree and making some comparisons in my own mind. I'd say on a deeper level, going beyond the themes and the content and the world building, I see the Rostaval saga in some ways as a long-form response to both R. Scott Bakker and Frank Herbert, two authors who I greatly admire. Both authors express a lot of caution and concern about charismatic leaders, great Carlylean great men of history, if you will, and with good reason. They have a lot of good points. Well, I acknowledge that. I also see these leaders, for better, for worse, bit of both, maybe something more, as profound movers and shakers in history. And I think if you doubt this point, then just consider, what would history as we know it look like without Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, Napoleon Bonaparte, these men who came along and embodied the trends and forces that were at work in their worlds, their societies, and changed the world in various ways. And you know, you might have aspects of it that are very negative. Certainly, if you were on the receiving end of their conquests, there's a lot of negative aspects there, to put it mildly. If you were a Gaul in the 1st century before Christ, being invaded by Julius Caesar, of course, his conquests are a terrible thing. But think about how much is different in complicated ways because of these kinds of leaders. And I'm fascinated by that dynamic. And that's a lot of what I want to capture in the Rostaval saga. I'm going to summarize this up by saying that I am so profoundly grateful to R. Scott Bakker for these magnificent books, and for all that have come to mean to me, that I had to dedicate the 4th book of the Rostaval saga, The Shadow of My Vision, to R. Scott Bakker. I just want to read that dedication. Dedication to R. Scott Bakker for inspiration that moves the deep waters of my soul. So that's why I am so enthusiastic and so very happy to be getting back to these books. And I can't wait to share my journey with you all. But how about you? Have you read R. Scott Bakker's Prince of Nothing series? Or the 4 books following it, the Aspect Emperor series? Do you want to read R. Scott Bakker? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps to grow the channel, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I hope to catch you on the next video.